Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a good few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, and even them as well because it is kind of central to their branding, it's most definitely fair to say that these guys are best known for their different kinds of German beers. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from these guys before. It's a sub-style though that I'm not 100% sure if I've had from them. I might have had something like this from them on tap once upon a time, but I honestly can't remember. But it is a style that I very much enjoy, and one that I've noticed has been getting a little bit more popular in recent times actually. From what I understand, this beer is a kind of reimagining of one of their core beers, and it is supposed to be very nice in fact. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head west of me here in Clackmannanshire through to Glasgow, Scotland's largest city. We're going to stay in the central area though, but go just a little bit down to Glasgow Green, and that means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the wonderful WEST Brewery. So this particular beer is called Wild West. It comes in at 4.9% ABV, and this one is an unfiltered lager. I'm not sure if we could call it a Keller beer, in fact. But yeah, from what I understand, this is a kind of unfiltered and slightly altered version of the St Mungo, which is of course their kind of core range Helles lager that they do, and that's available all across the country. But yeah, I was in West the other day with a friend who's visiting from Sweden and Chile, and I took her in there to try St Mungo's because I do love it, and I love the West on the Green venue, and I saw that they had this one. This was a can that I had never seen before, so I thought it'd be quite cool to review this one for you here on the channel. So that's what we're doing. Always nice to try new German style beers, and I have to say I do enjoy West. So if you're interested in German style beers and you're visiting Scotland, this is a good place to go. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we get on. A 4.9% unfiltered Helles or Keller beer, I don't know exactly what we should call it. The Wild West from WEST Brewery on Glasgow Green through in Glasgow. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from WEST Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlists of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of others, and you can of course check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. So yeah, this should be good. So let's go on then and I'll tell you a wee bit about WEST Brewery once again. So WEST Brewery was founded back in 2006, and they kind of struggled initially, but then the company was bought by Petra Wetzel in 2008, and she's been instrumental in building up this company and the WEST brand ever since. So she originally came to Scotland back in 1994 to study at Glasgow University, and she never left, and apparently she got involved at WEST Brewery without having ever drank a full pint of lager before. So yeah, it's pretty impressive when you consider where they are now. But they opened their beer hall, which is called West on the Green, which you'll find just to the kind of southeast, if you like, of the central part of Glasgow, if I'm not mistaken. And they've just kind of been growing ever since. They started off their beers in a very small brewery, but they've expanded it over time, and in 2016 they invested £5 million in a new brew kit and fermentation vessels and things like this, and today the brewery can be found in the old Templeton building, which I believe was a textile factory once upon a time, and this, as I said, is right on the edge of Glasgow Green. But this new facility, or this new brewing kit that they put in there, gave them the capacity to brew 25,000 hectolitres of beer per year. So that's what, 2.5 million litres, which is pretty good. But from 2019, the company has been partially owned by the company employees, with Petra retaining an ownership share, and she continued as the managing director of the company until 2021, when she left to basically focus on other projects. But she does still act as an advisor to WEST Brewery, from what I understand. But at this point, Matt Munro came in, and he was stepping up from his role as sales director, and he's been continuing to push the growth of the brewery. But all of the beers at WEST Brewery are brewed in accordance with the German Reinheitsgebot. I believe they're the only brewery in Scotland that do this completely. All of their beers are, as I say, brewed in accordance with that, not just certain ones, as is the case with a number of other breweries. But yeah, these guys are the only brewery in the country that are strictly adhering to the German purity law. And they do have a couple of awards from different German organisations who kind of keep an eye on the quality of food and things like that, which is also very impressive. But as of August 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 40 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said to you earlier, most of them are different German styles. But yeah, probably my favourite beers from this brewery, of course, the St. Mungo is a really nice Helles lager. I really do enjoy that one. But you've also got the Heideweisse, which I thought was really nice and authentic, and the Munich Red is another that you can't really go wrong with if you want something a little bit more malty. That's a style that you don't find all that often, even over in Germany. But yeah, I think that's everything we can really say about WEST Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'm not sure exactly what this can cost me. I think it might have been about £3.50, £4 or something like that. But as I said, this one was bought directly from the brewery. It's a little more expensive there, of course, than it is in the supermarkets and things, which is a bit weird to think. But yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. But you can see plain silver top on the can there. It's a 440 milliliter, which is good. And you can see on the back there, one of their branding, Glasgow Heart German head, which is quite nice. But yeah, there is that little 4 square thing there. That is the WEST Brewery symbol. It says on the back here, where was it again? This unfiltered lager shares the same grassy, herbaceous flavour as St. Mungo, but with a fuller body, prominent bitterness, and a touch more pith. But yeah, pretty nice, as I say. So, I don't think there's anything more we can really say about this one, say about the can art and things like that. So we should probably just get the beer out into the glass and see what it's all about. So, yeah. So, as I say, I'm really not sure about how we should term this one exactly, whether it should be considered a full Keller beer or what. They're just saying it's an unfiltered lager. So remember, the technical definition of a lager is a beer that undergoes fermentation at a lower temperature using bottom fermenting yeast, usually 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. And yeah, there are of course many different kinds of lager beers, but yeah, it looks pretty nice, I have to say. I do think this beer looks kind of pretty much how you would expect from a Keller beer, to be honest with you. So we've got maybe about 3/4 of the can out into the glass at the moment, and you can see that this beer's poured with a lovely, I would say, half finger of a frothy, perfect white head. You can see that there are some kind of medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid there. But then as you move further up at the head, you can see it's a little bit more sort of foamy and things. But yeah, if we shine the light through this beer, it's got a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to it, and you can see that it is, as it was saying on the tin, unfiltered. So yeah, I really do wonder whether we can refer to this as a Keller beer or what actually. Should be kind of interesting. They just say, as I said, unfiltered lager. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there. You can see a few little streams of bubbles going up toward the underside of the head there. But yeah, it looks really nice. In terms of the colour, as I say, quite a bright golden yellow colour, this one. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts that you put into the beer will affect the colour of it too. but that can vary, you know, from brewery to brewery and stuff like that. And you know, when it comes to lagers, it doesn't really, you don't really have to care about those latter two variables, to be quite honest with you. It's not often that you're going to barrel age a lager beer or put any fruit adjuncts into it, to be honest. But yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the appearance of this one. Nothing madly surprising about it when you consider what style it is. So it's a light Keller beer. For those of you who don't know, the Keller beer, if I'm not mistaken, is most prominent in the Franconia region, in the northern part of Bavaria, in Germany. Keller beers are very, very popular there from what I've seen. But yeah, it's cool to see that these beers are getting a little bit more attention, if you like. And I think it's really cool that we have a German style brewery, if we can call them that, here in Scotland. But yeah, nothing, you know, nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. Let's just have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. Really looking forward to this. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this is going to be right up my street. You know, the thing I always look for in these kind of traditional German styles, when they're brewed in other countries, I want them to be authentic and I want them to be close to what you would actually find in Germany, and that's quite obviously the case here. So yeah, I know that they use German malts and things like that, and German hops mainly, so it absolutely makes sense. But it will have a slightly different mouthfeel and things due to the Scottish water. We've seen that with WEST Brewery before. But yeah, this one gives you everything you would expect of the Keller beer. The big kind of yeasty notes, a little bit of kind of hoppy bitterness and stuff, little touch of fruitiness as well. Yeah, everything that you'd expect. So let's just break the aroma of this beer down a wee bit more and describe it for you a little bit more kind of in depth. So yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer, it has a lovely kind of fresh, white bready, bread crusty backbone to it. Just like a fresh hedgehog roll straight out the German bakery. I say this all the time when we're referring to German beers, but I always miss the German bakeries that I had when I was living in Heidelberg. It was great. But yeah, fresh, white bready bread crust there forming the backbone of the beer. You do have a little touch of woodiness coming out of this one too, which is very nice, I have to say. So yeah, a little touch of woodiness in there, which is great. You've got quite a little bit of like a Jacob's cream crackery type note to it as well. And then yeah, you have this Jacob's cream crackers in there. You've got a little bit of wholemeal brown bread, very slight little bit of wholemeal brown bread I would say. But then you've got lots of fluffy white bread just kind of sitting above that. And that's quite a common aroma to have in Keller beers. So yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, above the kind of fluffy white bread, you've got a nice wee bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity character to it. And yeah, you do get a little touch of sweetness out of this one the further into the nose that you get and the more your nose adjusts to it. So as I say, biscuit on the top, fluffy white bready character, a little bit of wholemeal brown bread underneath, some Jacob's cream cracker, and then also you've got that little bit of fresh, as I say, fresh kind of yeah, fresh white bready crust sitting underneath this one. So it really is very nice in that sense, and a little touch of woodiness to it as well. But yeah, I really do like how that pieces together. It is pretty awesome, I have to say. Yeah, it's so cool to see a beer like this brewed in Scotland. As I say, I often say that with the West beers. So for me, I think that's everything we really need to say about the kind of malty and yeasty side of the beer, to be honest with you. I think we can go on and have a little look at the green component and the fruity side of it too. So yeah, for me the green component is what you'd expect. I think it's probably Hallertau or Tettnang Mittelfrüh hops that have been used in this one. It doesn't strike me as being one of the higher alpha acid German hops in there. It just doesn't seem quite aggressive enough to be like, you know, Pearl or Hercules or something like that. But yeah, the green component for me, you've got a lovely little bit of smooth earthiness in there. So yeah, lovely little bit of smooth earthiness. On top of that, you get a little touch of herbal character, which is great. And then you get that nice, bright, floral aromatic thing that is, for me, one of the kind of benchmarks of German hops, if you like. So yeah, that brighter, grassy and floral component that you get from that brighter floral and grassy component that you get from these German hops is just great. I really love that about this beer. So yeah, nice kind of bright floral aromaticity in there, a little bit of a lighter and kind of dry grassiness in there too, and yeah, that just lingers there into the beer. It's very, very fresh, of course, which is great. And when the can's straight from the brewery, you can't get fresher than that, to be quite honest. Yeah. So on the green side of things, I think that's all we can really say. When it comes to the fruity side of the beer, it is kind of what you would expect from the style, to be quite honest with you. You've got you do get a little bit of a kind of fresh green apple, you get a little bit of fresh green apple, a little bit of a kind of oily pear, a little bit of apricot and stuff underneath it. Yeah, so a little bit of apricot, a little bit of apricot, a little bit of fresh green pear, or fresh green apple, oily pear, and I get a wee bit of like sultan out of it, dry white, green, grapey characters. So yeah, the aroma in this one, I think, is really quite nice, actually. As I say, very, very authentic. I could sit and smell these beers all day, but yeah, we should get on and actually have a taste of these things, eh? But yeah, I think it does smell great. It gives you everything you'd expect aroma-wise from a Keller beer. And as I say, I don't really know whether I should be calling this beer by that particular name, but it certainly strikes me as like a Keller beer. And of course, it's a Helles lager. Of course, Helles refers to the German blonde lagers. But yeah, as I always say, take a wee bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Wild West 4.9%. I'm just going to check that I've got that right, because I think there was a few different versions of this one. Yeah, 4.9%. Unfiltered lager, as West are calling it, but I think this is going to be kind of along the lines of a Keller beer. So yeah, let's have a taste of this and see what it's all about. Wild West from WEST Brewery on Glasgow Green through in Glasgow City. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty damn nice. It does have a little bit of that stronger bitterness and things to it. And of course, into the aftertaste, you get more and more of the yeasty character. These are all things that you would expect of the Keller Lager, of course, if you know this style. Yeah, that is really nice. I'd say, yeah, it does. I can see why they call it an unfiltered lager rather than being, straight up there with the Keller beer style, if that makes sense. The reason I say that is because the yeast isn't as big in the flavour profile as you might expect it to be. It's it just isn't as big as you might expect it to be. It really is more. It has an almost slightly Pils, like Keller Pils type quality to it. This one, or Czech Pilsner type vibe. It reminds me a little bit of that. It reminds me of the unfiltered version of Pilsner Urquell to an extent. But yeah, just not quite as dry, actually. So yeah. Pardon me. That's really It's really quite interesting. But it gets a thumbs up from me. I mean, I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this beer again. It'd be likely, it wasn't, the can wasn't quite big enough to put it in the stein, which was the main reason why I didn't do that. But yeah, I think this one goes together really, really very nicely in terms of the style. So let's do as we always do. We'll break the flavour of the beer down and just describe it for you that little bit more in depth. Middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer is that lovely, fresh, white bready bread crust that I was talking about earlier. It kind of just tastes as if it's got a little bit of the the flour left on the crust from being in the bakery. That's kind of how it goes. But further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do get a little touch of woodiness coming out of the beer, which grows in prominence the further into the aftertaste that you go. So that's definitely quite interesting as well. So that woodiness kind of lingers there, and it gives you a little bit of sweetness the further into the aftertaste that you go too. And then above the kind of bread crusty sort of thing, you've got that nice little bit of crackery character too, which I think is great. So, for me, the Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing that you get becomes a little bit more prominent into the aftertaste, because the beer does get a little bit drier and a little bit more bitter the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, you've got you've got the nice kind of bread crusty base to it, the Jacob's cream cracker, and above that you start to get the bready notes out of the beer. So you can feel there's a very slight, very light layer of like a wholemeal kind of brown bready sort of thing coming out of the beer. Then above that you've got like a fluffy white bready character as well, and then the fluffy white bready character is actually quite tall, and that gives you a good little bit of dryness out of this one, which is kind of interesting. It's almost got like a little touch of a like peppery spice to it or something like that. But then yeah, you'll feel in the dead centre of your palate there's a little circle there where you get a wee bit of there's a little circle there where you get a wee touch of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity type note. Yeah, there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that more oily McVitie's digestive biscuit note in the dead centre of your palate, and of course that's kind of covering the alcohol of the beer. But then yeah, as you move further out from that middle third of your palate, you have a little bit more of you do get a little bit more of just like a drier, crisp McVitie's digestive biscuit out of this one. These lager beers are not the most complex in terms of their flavour profiles, but as I say, if they're done well and well made, then you are going to really enjoy these. This has just got a lovely kind of crisp, light, bready character in the middle of the palate, and it leans more toward that yeasty side of things later on. But the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in this one there. You can feel there's a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character in the base, but there's a fluffy white bready character as you go further up. And then the back third of your palate, as I often say, it gives you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but usually just at different intensities, and that's what's going on here. So, but do remember the trend with your palate that generally speaking, sweeter flavours come out further forward, drier and more bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, you can feel the bread crusty base, the Jacob's cream cracker sitting on top of that. These two layers are a little bit more dry. You can feel the wholemeal brown bready layer, which feels a little bit taller but a little touch lighter and more airy too. And then you've got the big fluffy white bready character coming out of the beer above that too, which I think is great. And you feel that that's lighter and more airy. Above that, you get a little touch of like an almost. If I didn't know better, I would have said there was a little touch of wheat in this one. And said that it's giving you a little bit of a kind of wheaty, spicy character, but you just feel a little bit of the bread, like another kind of white bready, a more dense white bready character sitting on top of that with a little touch of an almost peppery spice. And then, pardon me, above everything else on that back third of your palate, you're getting a little bit more of a kind of yeasty character coming out of the beer, which is great. So yeah, the yeasty notes in this one are quite interesting too. You can feel there's this like really dense and slightly sweet white bready character coming out of this one. You've got a little bit of a woody nature to it, a little bit of a kind of crackery note, and then it's wrapped in a little touch of a kind of honeycomb type thing too. So yeah, the way that the beer goes together in that particular regard is quite nice too. And the yeastiness, as I say, gets a little bit more prominent the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, as I say, really solid Keller beer, this one. It's important to get the malt base and the yeasty side of things right, or we're calling this one an unfiltered lager. The yeasty character, as I said, is not quite as prominent as it would be in some of the other Keller beers and things like that. So I do wonder if that's why they're just calling it an unfiltered lager rather than a straight up Keller beer. But it's great, as I say, it's very authentic, and that's what you would expect from WEST Brewery if you've tried their other beers. But definitely we can say on the back third of the palate the flavour is taller, then as you come further forward into the middle third of your tongue it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. And as I say, I really like that. So yeah, let's move on to the hoppy side of things then. For me, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a lovely little touch of a kind of, you do have a lovely little touch of an earthy note in there, but it's not too pungent and it's not too earthy. I think that's absolutely fair to say. So yeah, a nice little bit of a kind of pungent, not pungent, as I say, a little bit of a lighter kind of earthy thing there. As you move further forward from that, you get a little touch of a kind of herbal character there, and as you push forward toward the kind of front corners of your palate, you can feel that it gradually gets more and more floral, and it's got a little touch of a spicy note to it. As I say, I think there might well be a wee touch of there might be a slightly higher alpha acid German hop in this one. It could be Pearl or Hercules or something like that. This beer is a little bit more bitter than the kind of 25 IBUs that you would get from the St Mungo's lager. But they said that, they did warn that on the side of the can, so it is to be expected. Round the front curve of the palate though, you've got a nice little bit of a lighter, grassy character coming out of it. So, for me, the grassiness in this beer is actually quite wet. It's like a freshly cut wet grass type thing that you get out of this. It's lovely and bright, and the further into the aftertaste you go, you start to feel a little bit of a zesty character kind of building up out of that, and that I think is really nice too. So yeah, the floral notes get a little bit more spicy, and the grassy side of things gets a little bit more zesty the further into the aftertaste you go, but the herbal and earthy kind of characters that come out of this one are also very nice, as I said. Yeah, interesting stuff. Definitely interesting stuff. On the hoppy side of things, I think that's everything we need to say. We should round off by looking a little bit at the front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there, which I think is great. So yeah, a lovely little bit of bready build up in there. Wholemeal brown bread in the base, white bread further up from that, and then the base of that front third of your palate is yeah, you've got that fresh white bready bread crust in there, you've got cracker on top of that, and a sweeter wholemeal brown bread that was sitting in there too. And then above all of that, you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. I think that's really nice too. So that gets a big thumbs up from me, I have to say. Yeah, good stuff, very good stuff. The fruity side of things for me though, you get that nice oily bubble. On that fruity side of things, what would we say? Now, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little touch of like a kind of sultana type note to this one, you know, dry white green grapes. As you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a very slight touch of dry apricot underneath, but then you have the more kind of oily, peary character sitting on top of that, and then as you move into the kind of front half of that front third of your palate. You've got a little teeny bit of like, I see why they say grapefruit in this one. You have got a little bit of that stronger citrusy character right behind the very front tip of your tongue. I would have probably guessed lime, but I can see why they say a bit grapefruit. So yeah, you have a little bit of that behind the very front tip of your tongue. But like I say, for me, it's sultana at the back, oily pear, and a bit of dry apricot underneath in the middle, and then yeah, a little bit of a limey, citrusy type note. A little bit of a limey, citrusy type note in the front third of your palate. So yeah, I think that's it's really nice in terms of its fruity character as well. But it's, as I say, with a lager beer, the fruitiness is not the most important part of the flavour, I guess you'd say, or most prominent part of the flavour. That's absolutely correct to say. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that in terms of the flavour profile. But in terms of the mouthfeel then, just to round off the review completely, yeah, for me, this beer, it's light-bodied, between the mid and the top end of light-bodied, I would say. Carbonation does have a degree of crispness to it, but the beer is nice and smooth. It has got a little bit of a kind of thicker yeasty quality to it, which is nice, and it feels, because of the Scottish water, it does feel very, very clean. As I've said on the channel many a times, we're very proud of our tap water here in Scotland, so yeah, for me it has that typical Scottish cleanliness to it. But yeah, in the malt base you've got a little bit of graininess and dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, little tiny touch of sweetness on top, so you've got a nice well-rounded malt base in there. In terms of the IBUs, I think this one could be about 30-ish IBUs. It does feel a little bit more bitter, particularly the further into the aftertaste you go, from the floral spiciness and from the grassiness, and then you've got that nice little bit of oily fruity character just pushing its way out of this one too. So yeah, as I say, I really like how this one pieces together, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again. It's very authentic in terms of an unfiltered lager, if you like. If I don't know if I would go quite as far as Keller beer with this one, just the yeasty, but in fairness, I was saying the yeasty notes earlier on didn't come out as much as I thought they might, but you know, the further you get with it, it does show you more and more of that typical character. So yeah, I like it. I do like how that goes together. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this review then. I think this has been really nice to try. So yeah, this was the Wild West unfiltered lager, as they're calling it, coming in at 4.9% ABV, a Keller beer from WEST Brewery through in Glasgow. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from WEST Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. So until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out WEST Brewery social media, and definitely cool to return to these guys again for the first time in a good wee while. Slàinte, Skål, and cheers.